Jake here with AmericanTrucks.com, and today I am taking a look at this Navos full-screen OE style radio upgrade with navigation for 2016 to 2018 Silverado 1500s. Big screens are all the rage these days, and if you're looking for a way to update the infotainment or integrate some more features into your Silverado, then this Navos unit is going to be right up your alley. This is a large 12-inch display that is not going to upgrade just the look, but also the functionality of your truck in a way that looks factory fresh. So if you're on the hunt for a way to add navigation or streaming apps to your truck, but you're not necessarily a fan of aftermarket head units, this is a perfect option for you. Not only does it look like original equipment, it seamlessly integrates your infotainment and climate controls into one large display. Now, many Silverados came with smaller screens, which, if we're honest here, look rather dated even if the truck is only a couple years old. And unlike most aftermarket solutions, this one is going to look right at home in your truck, as it's designed to look and function like an OEM setup. So what we've got here again is a large 12.1-inch vertical capacitive touchscreen. It is Android based and it runs the 8.1 Oreo operating system, which means that in addition to built-in apps and capabilities, you also have the option to run Android supported apps such as Waze, Google Maps, or Spotify, just to name a few. Of course, it also includes support for AM/FM radio, and it even has a navigation system built in that includes both 2 and 3D models, as well as some cool 3D building views for major cities. You can also link Android and Apple devices via Bluetooth, so you can make calls or stream music while on the move, but it is worth noting that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are not supported. However, you do get some other really cool features, including the integration of your climate controls. Since this unit will take the place of your radio display and your HVAC controls in your truck, Navos found a way to integrate them. So when you power on the display, you'll see a row of icons down at the bottom that are always present, regardless of what screen or function you're using. One of them is climate, and tapping that will take you into a screen that allows you to adjust the fan speed, temperature, etc., as well as some other creature comforts like heated seats if your truck is so equipped. You also might have noticed that you have some physical controls for all of that on the sides too. Now, if your truck has a backup camera and or parking sensors, those are also retained, and the camera's feed will display right here on the screen. So you're gonna get a much better view of your surroundings, since this screen is a lot larger than the factory one. And if you wanna add additional cameras, those are supported as well. You also get 64 gigs of internal memory, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and HDMI, RCA, and 2 USB inputs. So if you're planning on adding amplifiers, subs, or other pieces to your audio system, this has the capability to support all of it. However, that said, we do need to talk about pricing. Now, this Navos unit is gonna run you around $1,500. And while yes, that is a little on the expensive side, it does align pretty closely with quite a few of the other options out there for this generation of Silverado, even ones that are simply Chevy MyLink upgrades. So if your truck came with that small display, or if it didn't have MyLink to begin with, this is an excellent option for you, especially because of how good it looks when it's installed. And that brings us nicely to the construction. I really can't stress enough how nice this looks when it's installed in the truck. So many aftermarket head units stick out like a sore thumb, but that is not the case here. You get these bezels on the outside of the screen that are gonna match perfectly with the dash, and it's clearly meant to fit the Silverado. This isn't something that was adapted from another application. It was designed to integrate with your dashboard. And my favorite part, again, is that you get these physical controls on the sides. You get a volume and a tuning knob, plus those buttons for your HVAC. So if you wanna turn on the AC, adjust your fan speed or anything, even just adjusting the volume, it's simple. You don't have to take your eyes off the road to make adjustments to that stuff. And it feels pretty good in your hand. They feel a lot like the stock buttons in your Silverado. It's really a slick looking setup, and I'm continually impressed every time I see one of these. And if somebody got into your truck and they didn't know, they'd probably assume that this is how it came from the factory. So how easy is this gonna be to install? We're gonna rate this one a 2 out of 3 on the difficulty meter, and it should take you around 2 hours or so to get it done. And that's mostly because you have to remove not only just the stereo unit, but also those HVAC controls below it. Now, the kit comes with the screen unit, these bezels for the side, as well as everything you need to get it hooked up. Now, if you've replaced a stereo before, you know it can get a little finicky, and there are a lot of harnesses here, but this is a job that you can easily accomplish at home. Again, everything you need is here, the RCA cables, the GPS antenna, and all the other stuff that you need. It's good if you're at least familiar with wiring, but you really just need to make sure that you take some time and get these harnesses plugged into the correct places. Overall, it is a straightforward install, just a bit time consuming. Now let's head over to the install bay and we'll show you exactly how to get this done on your truck.
The tools you'll need for this project are a soft trim removal tool, 1/4-inch drive ratchet, a 7mm socket, a T15 Torx bit, a small Phillips head screwdriver, and a 7mm wrench. Hi everyone. Today we're installing a radio into our Silverado, so let's get started with the uninstall of the stock system first. So the first thing we need to do is remove this trim piece that goes around our radio. And to do that, we're going to be using a soft trim removal tool. And we're just going to stick this in here and pry it out to release the clips. We go ahead and get that out of our way. Now we're going to remove these 4 screws on each of the corners here to go ahead and release our radio. To do that, we're going to use a 7mm socket. Now our vehicle is actually missing a couple of screws, but like I said, they're in each of the corners here, so we'll go ahead and take those out. Now once you've got your screws out of the way, you go ahead and pull that radio out. And then as you can see, we've got 3 connectors here on the back that we need to release. Now we go ahead and remove our CD player. Again, using our 7mm socket. Now we can slide our CD player out and disconnect the connector on the back. Now we can go ahead and disconnect the connectors here for the radio module. So we'll push down on the release lever and pull the connector out. And we slide our module out. Now we can move on to the next step, which is going to be to remove the lower portion of our steering column here and this panel on the side. Now using our soft trim removal tool, we're going to get in right underneath the ignition switch here and pull down, and we'll separate the other side. Now you may, and I'll show you here in a minute, go ahead and pull this away here and just get that away from the steering column. Now the other thing is we're going to have to pull this down and remove it using the 2 screws at the bottom with our T15 Torx bit. So we've got one here just to the right of the hood release lever. And the other one just to the left of your OBD2 port. So we just get that out of our way. Now, as I mentioned before, it was a little bit hard to see, but there's 2 screws on the bottom of this lower panel that goes on the bottom of the steering column. You may or may not have screws in there. If you do, just remove those screws with a Phillips head screwdriver. And then to remove the adjustment lever for the tilt column, you just have to grab a hold of this handle and pull it out, and then your panel will come right off. And before we actually get to plugging in all of our new wires, we need to install a couple of these brackets here. We got one on each side at the top of the radio. So to install this, the kit does come with the supplied screws. So we're just going to set these on top over the holes, making sure that these tabs with the one hole are facing outwards and not inside like this. We'll just set our bracket over the two holes on the radio trim, and then just install them with our Phillips head screwdriver. Now you want to be careful not to over tighten them because we are dealing with plastic here. Now we'll do the one for the other side. All right, now we can start running our new wires. So our first harness that we're going to connect is for our steering wheel controls, and it's located on this lower part of the steering column right here. And it's just a flat connector. So what we're going to do is just push in on the release lever for the connector and just slide it out. Now this is a T-harness here for the steering wheel controls for the new radio. So all we're going to have to do is plug this harness in. Like so. And then we can run this other end of the harness through the dash and up behind our radio. So we'll just feed this through. Like so. And then we can go ahead and reassemble our steering column. So we'll go ahead and put our lower piece on. Like so. Reinstall our lever for our steering column adjuster, and then reassemble our top piece. And once you got the two pieces pretty close to being together, just go ahead and push them up and snap them into place. Do the same thing for the other side. And now you can go ahead and slide in your adjuster lever for the tilt column. Now we can move on to actually plugging things in. So like I said earlier, some of these plugs are not going to get used. This is one of them that we're not going to be using. So you can just set that off to the side. Now you've got another one here for the steering wheel controls that we just ran. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. Like so. And like I said, they are labeled, so SWC on the new harness, and then SWC for steering wheel controls. Now we've got a couple of jumpers in here. One is for the audio. We won't need that one. Now we push that in, make sure that it snaps in, and our CD player jumper is hooked up. Now the other thing that we do need to plug in, and these 6 RCA jacks here are not going to be used. The only one that we're using is the microphone one, and that's going to plug in to this left outer plug right there. And then what's going to happen is our external microphone that you can use for your hands-off, hands-free, is going to plug into the black cable that's marked as your mic. Now, we're not going to plug that in just yet because we need to run our microphone and get it hooked up before we run our wires. So what we're going to do temporarily is we're just going to mount this on our A-pillar trim right there. And you can route the wire anywhere you want. We're just going to kind of tuck it in underneath the weather stripping here, just to hold it in place for right now. All right, then you can run that along down underneath the door trim. and we'll run it back up inside along our steering wheel control wires. Once you get that run through, then you can go ahead and plug it in to the mic outlet there. Now, once we get all this put together and everything plugged in, then we'll go ahead and zip tie the excess up underneath to make sure it stays out of the way and we don't have any interference with anything. Now, we can go ahead and hook up our antenna connector. We'll get that plugged in here. And then plug in our antenna on the back of the radio. And we can go ahead and plug in our audio cable jumper. Right there. And we've got another jumper here on this flat piece. Plug that in, tuck it inside, and now we can hook up our Wi-Fi antenna, and that's just going to screw onto the gold-plated fitting in the back. And we have our GPS antenna, and that's going to snap into the blue connector on the back as well. Now, we've also got our external speaker here, and this is basically for your door chimes, letting you know that the door is open and the key is in the ignition. Like I said, there's so many connectors in here. You just got to find out where everything is. So we just go ahead and snap that into place. Now you'll notice that there is a double-sided tape on the back of this speaker. We're not going to hook ours up right now as far as mounting it in place, but you can mount that pretty much anywhere you want to. Now we also have a USB connector. That's going to plug in on the back right there in the second slot. And again, you can mount that wherever you choose. Now, with everything hooked up and ready to go, now we can just tuck all of our wires back inside to make sure that they're all out of the way. And there we go. Once we've got the radio pushed into position, we can go ahead and reattach the radio to the dash using the original screws that we took out. And we can go ahead and tighten those down with our 7mm socket. All right, now because of the way that these brackets are located on the new system, you may have to use just a regular 7mm wrench instead of the socket to get these upper ones tight. So we just reach in there and go ahead and tighten those down. And remember not to over tighten them. Get the two at the bottom. Now we can go ahead and install our trim pieces for the outside. All right, now we can go ahead and install our outer trim pieces on the side of the radio. And you'll notice that there's this plate here on the trim pieces themselves. If you happen to have heated seats with the switches on the dash, what you're gonna do is go ahead and remove those, remove these plates and pop them in, and then we can go ahead and install our trim pieces. Since we don't have heated seats in our truck, we're just going to go ahead and install this. So you just have to press it into place until it snaps. Now we can go ahead and work with the configuration and get it all set up. All right, now we can go ahead and set up our system and make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to. And also, primarily what we're gonna do now is also set up the settings for our climate control. So we'll go ahead, turn our ignition on, give it a second for the system to actually activate. Go ahead and press the accept for the safety warning. Now we'll go ahead and press the home key here, and then we'll go into settings. Then we'll select system, setting guide, and you see this very first selection here is car model AC. So we'll go ahead and select that one, and ours automatically came up with General Motors, Silverado, and Sierra, which is what we want. So we'll go ahead and press Silverado Sierra. Manual AC. This is what, manual or auto, depending on what you originally had, the type of system that you had, whether you select manual or auto AC. Ours had the manual AC, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then press OK. And then we can press home. Now we can actually run through our options here to make sure that everything is working correctly. So we'll go ahead and select navigation, and it pulls up. If we weren't inside where we're at right now, we would see our Google Maps, but you can see that it actually comes up. We can go to radio. We have our options for the radio. Now, you can probably hear a lot of the static. But that's because we're inside a building and we're not getting very good reception at all. Music. You can put in a USB device to listen to your music, have your phone hooked up to actually play your media files from there. Now we can select climate. You got your different options here. How do you want the air to be distributed? We'll select from the upper top. Go ahead and press power. You've got your fan speeds down here at the bottom. You've got your temperature settings that you can adjust. You can do them separately on each side. Your air recirculation here. AC is on. Your defrost. If you have rear defrost, you can select that from there as well. Adjust our speed. Select your Bluetooth menu. You can make phone calls, however you want to do that. Video. Video is disabled at this particular moment. And then you can also hook up your phone. Now we're not going to hook up our phone right now because we're not keeping this in our truck. But the other thing you can do is select the buttons on the side here. So if we select mode, again, it brings up our heating and air conditioning controls. Adjust your temperature from the buttons here. Adjust your fan speed. Your rear defrost, your front defrost, your air recirculation button. So everything works. Now you've got a bigger screen to be able to deal with. And that's our install of our new NAVOS system. And that wraps up our review and install of the NAVOS full screen OE style radio upgrade with navigation for the 16 to 18 Silverado 1500. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.